Namaste to one and all. Welcome to Śabda-yoga once again. In this episode, we will now be discussing the word yoga itself. We will do the etymological analysis. We will analyze the lexical entries, and also we will see the textual occurrences of the term yoga in three fundamental yoga texts, that is Yogasūtra, Bhagavad-gītā and Haṭha-yoga-pradīpikā. And finally, few observations based on this will follow. Let's get into the etymology, the derivation, the grammatical derivation aspect of it. We can see that the word yoga is derived by the joining of two components, yuj, the root, and ghai, the suffix or the pratyaya. Now, first we come to the word yuj or the grammatical root yuj, where we see that there are three possible grammatical roots according to Sanskrita grammar. Yuj samadhi, to concentrate, to focus; yuj yoga, to join, to bind, restrain, etc. and yuj sanyamana, to restrain, to control, to bind. So these are the three grammatically possible roots for the word yoga in all its occurrences across literature, as we see. And then to the second part, that is ghai. So this ghai is added, this suffix is added to indicate the bhavartha, which is the act, the kriya alone. So as per the grammatical rule bhave in Ashtadhyayi Sutra, so yujyate iti yogaha, that will be the derivation of the term, the derivative statement, which means the act of concentration, if we go by yuj samadhi, the act of joining or the act of controlling, restraining, etc. That would be the meaning of the word yoga as per the etymology. Now let's come to the lexical entry. In Amarakosha, there is a reference, Yogasannahanopa dhyana sangati yuktishu. So yoga has been given five meanings, five possible meanings across yogic and non-yogic literature, because Sanskrita literature is vast and hence there are so many possible occurrences of the term yoga in not only yogic treatises but in other treatises also, for various purposes, to indicate various meanings it is used. So five meanings have been collected in Amarakosha. Most prevalent five meanings are used, which is Sannahana, Upaya, Dhyana, Sangati, Yukti, which means armor, means, Dhyana, relation or union, and junction. These are the five meanings that are possible. As I mentioned, though the lexicon gives five possible meanings, but in the context of the Yogasūtra and also yoga literature, it will be wise only to focus upon dhyana and the relation or union. These two are the prevalent meanings in yoga literature. Now, as the lexicon gives all these five meanings, then can I say the chitta vritti nirodha as some kind of an armor, some kind of an explanation which says it is an armor from negativity, etc. Can we call yoga that way? No. So, because the specific sense in which yoga, which means armor, it may be found in other literature, but neither the commentators, neither in the tradition, we don't see this meaning of sannahana, etc. being used in the context of the Yoga Shastra. So it would not be appropriate to use this and try to interpret Yogasūtra using these available meanings given in. It is not that if lexicon gives the meanings, it means it cutting across various disciplines, the possible meanings are collected. It is not that all these meanings are to be applied in the context of Yoga Shastra. So this is a very important observation or kind of basic understanding that is essential when we look into the lexical meanings. And this is also the utility, that what are all the meanings to use and what not to, or what to refrain from. That clarity also can come about only when we bring to table the possible meanings, and that is served by this entry from Amarakosha. Then we quickly move on to the textual occurrences of the term yoga in Yogasūtra itself. So we see that there are about 7 references. It is in one occasion that the word yoga, merely the word yoga alone is used, where in yogas chitta vritti nirodha. So where yoga is defined in Yogasūtra, so there yoga, independently the word yoga is used, and it is defined as chitta vritti nirodha, the restraint or cessation of the activities of the mind, which will be a general simple translation. So that is called as yoga, and in this context the act of cessation or restrainment, etc., are to be understood as samadhi. So according to the commentator Vyasa, the primary commentator, yoga samadhi, and samadhi is nothing but chitta vritti nirodha. So that is so basically the first route that is given in as per the etymology is what is applicable and acceptable according to the commentators of Yogasūtra in the context of yogas chitta vritti nirodha, yoga samadhi. Then in 3 other occasions we find yoga being used as part of compound. So in Yogasūtra, yoganushasana in the first sutra, kriya yoga, and then yoganga, limbs of yoga, kriya yoga, and the teaching of yoga as per tradition. So these are the compound words in which the word yoga, which means chitta vritti nirodha, in these 3 contexts also. So that is used, and in certain occurrences the word yoga is found, which is not necessarily chitta vritti nirodha, where the word sanyoga is, the word yoga is there, but it is not chitta vritti nirodha, it is conjunction. But sanyoga is a critical term in Yogasūtra, where we see swaswami shaktyo swarupopalabdhi hetuhu sanyogaha, to know about the swashakti and also swami shakti, to know about the drishyam and also to know about drashta, the sanyoga or the conjunction is essential, and so that by which the knowledge of drashta and drishyam is known, so that is defined as sanyoga, and that from the point of view of yoga, that sanyoga, from the point of view of attainment of chitta vritti nirodha, etc., and also kaivalya, this sanyoga has to go. That is mentioned again in tadabhavat sanyoga bhavaha hanam tad drishehe kaivalyam. So by removal of avidya, that sanyoga is also overcome, and then the purusha is established in his true, pristine, conscious nature. So it is in these 2 sutras we find the usage of the term sanyoga. Then we find the samprayoga, where again yoga is part of the terminology. Swadhyaya ishtadevata samprayoga, by firmly being established in swadhyaya, shaucha santosha tapas swadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani. In the context of niyamas, we find swadhyaya, by being established in swadhyaya, ishtadevata samprayoga, conjunction or sakshatkara. Samprayoga here is conjunction, and especially sakshatkara with the divinity that is being worshipped through the japa, through the study by the practitioner. So it is in that sense the word samprayoga is used. Here again it is not chitta vritti nirodha when it is used as part of samprayoga. Again we find viniyoga. Tasya bhumishu viniyoga. In the 3rd chapter, sanyama is spoken, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Tasya bhumishu viniyoga. In various levels, in various contexts, the sanyama or dharana, dhyana, samadhi is channelized. Viniyoga, distribution. So it is in that sense the word viniyoga is used, and there also it has nothing to do with chitta vritti nirodha as such. Means there the term yoga does not mean chitta vritti nirodha. So that clarity, for that it has been stated. So we see these 3 types of kind of utilization of the word yoga in Yogasūtra. Again, this textual analysis brings forth what really points to the ultimate yoga, and what are the other meanings in which the term mere conjunction, mere connection, sakshatkara, direct perception, in all these, and channelization. So all these senses are also, means non-chitta vritti nirodha meaning are also there for yoga in Yogasūtra itself. That clarity comes about when we analyze the occurrences of the term, and this also brings out the utility of doing this exercise of Śabda-yoga. Now we quickly move on to Bhagavad-gītā. It is very interesting to note that there are in about 94 shlokas of Bhagavad-gītā, we find the expression yoga, either as a direct term or a derivative term or a compound in which yoga is part of, and also a term with the prefixes, and having yoga as the core and having suffixes and prefixes. In that way, we see the term yoga in about 94 verses, excepting in 1st and 17th chapter. In all other chapters, all other 16 chapters of Bhagavad-gītā, we know 18 chapters are there. Excepting in 1st and 17th chapter, we find the various avatars of the term yoga in Bhagavad-gītā. And it will be interesting to note, most references, most occurrences of the term yoga is found in the 6th chapter, with 28 references to the term or occurrences term yoga is found. That is the chapter on Dhyana Yoga. Now, other interesting idea is about 37 unique, interesting expressions of yoga are found in Bhagavad-gītā. You can see with references they are given here. One can refer more, study more. Like yoga, yogastha, atma sanyama yoga, yoga yajna, and just reading a few only: yoga bhrashta, dukha sanyoga, viyoga, yoga seva, yoga kshema, sannyasa yoga, abhyasa yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga vyavasthiti, dhyana yoga para. All these wonderful compounds and expressions on yoga are found. About 37 such terms can be found. One can refer, study, and understand the various meanings, the various shades, and the various inputs that emerge from these references. Such richness of material. Apart from that, we see, as very well known, 3 different definitions of yoga is also found in this text. Samatvam yoga uchyate, yoga karmasu kaushalam, tam vidya dukkha yoga viyogam yoga samhitam. So, from this point of view, Bhagavad-gītā is a mine of information, a rich treasure of information on the usage of terminology yoga as such. See, only by studying all this, we will get a clear idea, complete idea about what yoga is all about. What are all the various contexts and connotations in which yoga is used. Only when we patiently pursue all these references, slowly, this is part of Swadhyaya. So we see tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana. So this is Swadhyaya. Such Swadhyaya will be enriching. So again, we come to the next step, text Haṭha-yoga-pradīpikā, where we see about 97 references to the word yoga is found, but we don't see a specific definition of yoga as such emerging here. Whereas there is in the commentary, the term Haṭha-yoga, Hakarah Kirtitaha Chandraha Thakara Surya Uchyate, Surya Chandramasor Yogat, Haṭha-yogo Nigadyate. So the definition of Haṭha-yoga comes from the Jyotsna commentary, which further refers to the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. So it is so the direct definition of yoga as such, unlike Bhagavad-gītā, unlike Yogasūtra, we don't find a definition of yoga as such, but we find very interesting expressions here. Just like Bhagavad-gītā, we also here find interesting expressions like yoga matha, raja yoga, yogi pungava, yoga parayana, abhyasa yoga, yogini chakra, yogokta, purva yoga, yogavan, yoga nidritaha. All these expressions. Interestingly, in Yogasūtra, we don't find the expression Raja Yoga, but in Haṭha-yoga-pradīpikā, we find the expression Raja Yoga. And these references again can be consulted, studied to gain more depth of understanding about the terminology yoga. So finally, we can see the richness of input, the various layers of meanings of yoga that are there, and then the etymology gives a few meanings. The lexicon, though it gives many meanings, we have to follow the vrata of restraining or restricting it to a couple of meanings, and then from the usages we find in the texts we find various definitions, various coinages, etc. And we also need to be very careful in looking at certain terms which do not essentially mean chittavritti nirodha. In the context of sanyoga, viniyoga, samprayoga, all these means just conjunction, channelization, or sakshatkar, or direct perception. It is in this sense that these terms are used. So this kind of clarity can also be achieved when we look at all these expressions. And then, as I said initially, sumptuous food for thought and study and for swadhyaya is there. it will enrich our understanding, and when our understanding is enriched, our practice, our focus, our teaching of yoga even will become better when we explore these patiently. So that is Swadhyaya Yajna. In Bhagavad-gītā also we see Swadhyaya Jnana Yajñāscha. So for our Swadhyaya Yajna, Swadhyaya itself becoming a Yajna, all these references, all these resources on the terminology yoga itself can be useful. So with these words, I conclude this session of Śabda-yoga. Namaste.